This is True Crime Stories. Let's take this case step by step.
Karls Monzon had no criminal record. He was a 32-year-old Cuban immigrant living in Miami, working as a truck driver for a construction equipment rental company. His wife wanted a baby. He spent his evenings watching Law and Order and Dateline. Then in April of 2005, his friend Onelio Diaz called him with a piece of information that would, eventually, become one of the largest cash robberies in American history. Diaz worked as a Brinks security guard at Miami International Airport. Every day, he told Monzon, a Lufthansa flight from Frankfurt landed carrying bricks of $5,000 bills. The shipments came from Commerzbank, Germany's second largest bank. They were headed to the Federal Reserve Branch in Miami. Each flight averaged between $8,100 million in US currency. And here was the part that mattered. Between the moment the bags came off the plane and the moment armored vehicles took them to the Federal Reserve, the cash sat in a warehouse at the airport perimeter. A loading dock without air conditioning, doors propped open, minimal security, while customs counted the money. That window lasted roughly 2 hours. Monzon was not a career criminal. He was an amateur, working from television. But what he did next was patient. He checked into a nearby hotel multiple times to verify Diaz was telling the truth. He watched the cash transport himself. He noted the timing, the staffing, the doors. He recruited his uncle-in-law, his brother-in-law, and a co-worker from the rental company. He stole 2 Ford pickup trucks from Jacksonville and stashed them in a Miami warehouse. By the fall of 2005, the plan was ready. And then, 2 months before the heist, his wife went to the hospital with high blood pressure and lost the baby. Monzon told investigators later that he no longer wanted the money for himself. He wanted enough to adopt a child. On November 6th, 2005, around 8 in the morning, Monzon, his brother-in-law Jeffrey Boatwright, and his uncle-in-law Conrado Pereira drove one of the stolen pickup trucks to the airport perimeter. 2 of them were masked. They had a single firearm between them. The plan was to enter the warehouse, force everyone to the ground, and grab as many of the 42 cash bags as they could carry. Each bag weighed 38 pounds. Almost nothing went smoothly. A van full of US customs officers sped past as the crew arrived, and the men nearly aborted. Monzon's mask slipped off inside the warehouse. The getaway driver froze and forgot to pull the truck up to the loading dock. One of the Brinks guards, who had a pre-existing heart condition, suffered a cardiac event during the takeover and was hospitalized. And yet, in under 5 minutes, the crew loaded 5 bags into the truck and drove off the airport tarmac. The haul was $7.4 million in cash. It was a fraction of the $80 million on the plane that day. But it was, at that moment, one of the largest cash robberies in US history. Then came the part that ends every heist of this kind. Monzon had given his crew one rule, the same rule Jimmy Burke gave the JFK crew in 1978. Don't spend the money. Don't change your routine. Don't draw attention. Boatwright, the brother-in-law and getaway driver, ignored every word of it. He had a cocaine habit and a fondness for exotic dancers. He started dropping $40,000 on Rolex watches. Not one watch, several. He bought drugs in volume. He frequented the same strip club so often that, in December, a rival crew kidnapped him outside of it and demanded a $1 million ransom from Monzon. Monzon paid. Boatwright went right back to spending. By February of 2006, the FBI had received a tip naming Monzon as a suspect. They put a wiretap on his phone. And on February 16th, Boatwright was kidnapped a second time from the same strip club. The kidnappers called Monzon and threatened to end Boatwright's life if he didn't pay. Monzon, exhausted, told them to go ahead. The FBI heard every word. Within weeks, 7 people were indicted. 4 on robbery charges, 3 on kidnapping. Onelio Diaz, the Brinks guard who'd made the original phone call, was among them. Most of the $7.4 million was never recovered. 5 of the original cash bags are still missing. The Miami case is almost always framed as a copy of the 1978 Lufthansa heist at JFK. The one Martin Scorsese turned into Goodfellas. Same airline, same cargo terminal setup, same insider tip from a guard, same collapse triggered by a crew member who couldn't stop spending. When Monzon was finally interviewed years later, he said something curious. He said he'd never seen Goodfellas. He learned what he learned from Law and Order. That detail matters more than it sounds. The Lufthansa robbery in 1978 was a professional Lucchese crime family operation, planned by veteran organized criminals with decades of experience. And it's still unraveled. 27 years later, an immigrant truck driver with no record working from television scripts executed essentially the same crime, same airline, same vendor, same window of opportunity in the post-September 11th security era, and got further than the professionals did before getting caught. The security gap that Onelio Diaz noticed in April was the same kind of gap Louis Werner noticed in 1978. 2 hours of cash sitting in a lightly guarded room because somebody had to count it before the armored car came. What ended both heists was identical too. Not detective work, not surveillance, not forensics. A crew member who couldn't sit on the money. In 1978, it was a custom pink Cadillac. In 2005, it was Rolexes and a strip club. The hardest part of stealing $7 million is not stealing it. It's pretending the next morning that you didn't. Monzon was sentenced to 17 years. He was released in 2016 and now works as a truck driver again. He never adopted a child. His wife divorced him. Here's the question worth sitting with. If a man with no criminal record, working from network television, can replicate the largest cash robbery in American history 27 years later, what does that say about how much of crime is actually skill? And how much is just a door somebody forgot to lock? Drop your answer in the comments, and if cases like this one are why you're here, hit subscribe.